It was a hectic morning at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Leaders from various nations had assembled to address pressing global matters such as food security, climate change, and international cooperation. Ibrahim Traoré, the young president of Burkina Faso, approached the podium with a composed yet assertive demeanor. He was more than just a rising African leader. He had become a symbol of resilience and independence on a continent long shaped by external reliance. After adjusting the microphone, Traoré began his speech with a steady and determined voice. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of the world's nations, I wish to present an initiative being implemented in Burkina Faso. This initiative not only aims to transform our nation but also to reshape how Africa interacts with the rest of the world. He paused briefly, letting his words sink in before continuing. For years, many African countries have leaned on foreign aid for food security. Programs such as USAID have played a vital role in supporting millions. But now the question arises, does this aid liberate us, or does it extend our dependency? The room was quiet. All eyes were fixed on him. Traoré proceeded. With help from our regional allies, Burkina Faso is launching a new program, Rice for Everyone. In the upcoming months, we will begin exporting rice to neighboring West African nations, replacing portions of food aid typically provided by international agencies like USAID. The hall fell into a stunned silence. Some delegates exchanged astonished glances. A few offered hesitant applause, while others appeared visibly unsettled by his remarks. Traoré clarified that the program was not solely about agricultural productivity. It was about dignity and self-reliance. Our mission is simple, he said. We want Africa to feed Africa. We want our children to grow up believing in the power of their own land, their own hands, not an aid bound by political interests. He concluded his address with a bold message. External aid has its role, but it cannot be a lasting solution. Real change begins when we claim our future, and that is exactly what we are doing. The applause was thunderous. Among those present was Donald Trump, who had been watching from a distance. He appeared visibly unsettled by Traoré's boldness, whispering something to his aides before abruptly leaving the hall, clearly intrigued and perhaps threatened by what he had just heard. After Ibrahim Traoré's stirring speech at the UN, Trump's surprise was evident. He had attended the Burkina Faso president's address with a mix of curiosity and doubt. For Trump, who has always championed a pragmatic, transactional approach to global affairs, the idea of an African nation independently managing its food security and sidelining USAID was both new and confrontational. Back at his New York office, Trump quickly summoned a meeting with his advisors. Who is this guy? He demanded, pointing at Traoré's image on a screen. Does he really think he can just replace what the US has done for decades? His team attempted to explain that Traoré's program wasn't merely about replacing USAID, it was about empowering African self-sufficiency. Still, Trump was visibly agitated. He saw the announcement as a direct challenge to America's long-standing influence on the continent. This is an insult, Trump snapped, shaking his head. We've supported these countries for years, and now they think they can just cut us out. That's not going to happen. Meanwhile, international media buzzed with reactions to Traoré's address. Headlines praised his courage and vision. Political commentators debated whether the Rice for All plan was achievable or merely symbolic. Some development experts lauded Traoré's bold move, while others questioned the practicality of the program. Burkina Faso is taking a massive gamble, one economist noted in an interview. Exporting rice on that scale demands significant investment in infrastructure resources the country may not yet possess. Despite the skepticism, Traoré stood firm. He acknowledged the obstacles but believed the initiative was essential to liberate Africa from chronic foreign dependence. At a press conference, he responded to critics with calm determination. Yes, there are difficulties, but we believe they can be overcome. We're already seeing success on our community farms. Our production is growing quickly. We're not asking for approval, we're building our destiny. Trump, on the other hand, opted to retaliate. He pledged to increase American investment in African food aid and infrastructure programs, aiming to sustain U.S. influence. But many African leaders received the message with doubt. Traoré's example had struck a chord. In an exclusive interview, Trump was asked about Traoré's plan. He responded in his typical manner. This guy thinks he can outdo us. Good luck. Let's see how long it lasts without our support. Trump's comments echoed globally, but rather than intimidating Traoré, they only reinforced his resolve. He understood this was more than a policy dispute. It was a battle against a global system that had too often dismissed Africa's capabilities. In the months that followed, Traoré visited neighboring countries to form new partnerships and expand the Rice for Everyone initiative, determined to prove that Africa could feed itself on its own terms. He also initiated an educational campaign to raise awareness among local communities about the importance of sustainable agriculture. We are not just planting rice, he said during a visit to a community farm. We are planting hope. We are showing the world that Africa can feed itself. The initiative rapidly gained public support. Many young people became interested in agriculture, viewing it as a way to contribute to their country's development. For Donald Trump, this was an entirely unfamiliar situation. He was used to leaders seeking his endorsement, but Traore was different. He wasn't asking for favors. He was building something independently. The Rice for All program quickly gained momentum in Burkina Faso and began expanding into neighboring countries like Mali, Niger, and Ivory Coast, supported by small local farmers and strategic investments in sustainable agricultural technology. Rice production grew at a remarkable rate. Traore had established a regional network of agricultural cooperatives, ensuring that profits remained within local communities instead of going to foreign corporations. African leaders responded with unified support, seeing the initiative as a powerful example of self-sufficiency. During an African Union summit, several presidents praised the positive effects of Traore's program. "He is showing us that Africa can feed itself," said one African leader in a speech. "We are tired of relying on foreign aid. It's time to take control of our future." Meanwhile, Donald Trump observed the developments with skepticism. He instructed his team to assess the program's impact and find ways to regain influence in the region. But the more he tried to interfere, the more resistance he encountered. West African countries stood united behind Traore's plan, viewing it as a chance to reshape their relationship with the world. Traore understood that the program's success relied not only on agriculture but also on the education and training of local communities. He launched a campaign called Sowing the Future, which provided young farmers with training in modern farming techniques and natural resource management. The goal was to cultivate a new generation of agricultural leaders who could sustain and expand the program. During a visit to a community farm in Mali, Traore met a young farmer named Amadou who had left school to support his family. Thanks to the program, Amadou was now learning advanced irrigation and harvesting skills. "Mr. President," Amadou said emotionally, "thank you. I have a second chance now. I can dream of becoming someone." Traore smiled with pride. "You already are someone, Amadou," he replied. "And you're proving that when we give people the right tools, they can change the world." In the following months, the program began to attract international recognition. Humanitarian and environmental groups applauded the initiative, calling it a model for sustainable development. Even some early critics started to acknowledge the project's positive impact. However, Trump remained unconvinced. He decided to visit Burkina Faso himself to gain a better understanding of the program and explore possible ways to minimize its influence. When he arrived, he was greeted by Traore at a modest but meaningful ceremony. "Mr. President," Trump said, trying to appear friendly, "I'd like to see how this program works." Traore smiled and responded, "Of course, Mr. Trump. But remember, this isn't about competition. It's about collaboration." The two spent the day touring community farms, agricultural schools, and food distribution centers. Trump was impressed by the program's efficiency, but visibly uneasy with the fact that an African country had achieved so much without his assistance. "This is impressive," Trump admitted in a private conversation with Traore. "But do you really think you're not replacing us?" "We are not replacing anyone," Traore replied calmly. "We're creating our own solutions, and we hope others will follow our path." Trump was left speechless. He realized that he was dealing with a leader who wasn't chasing approval or recognition. He was creating something far beyond politics. The impact of the Rice for All program extended beyond Africa. It became a global symbol of how self-reliance, dignity, and cooperation can transform nations. Leaders from developing countries began to view Burkina Faso not only as a beacon for Africa but as a worldwide example of how to address food and economic crises without relying entirely on external aid. Donald Trump, who initially doubted the project, began to notice something unexpected. Traore's vision was delivering measurable results. Reports showed a significant rise in agricultural output in Burkina Faso and its partner nations. Imports were reduced, and local economies strengthened. Moreover, the program was generating employment and opportunity for youth, many of whom had previously been unemployed or forced to migrate for better prospects. During a live interview, Trump was asked about his current opinion on Traore's program. After a brief pause, he responded, "I have to admit, this guy is doing something impressive. He's proving that it's possible to create local solutions to global problems. This is something we can all learn from." Trump's words surprised many, but they also showed how far Traore had come. He wasn't just transforming his own country, he was changing the international narrative about Africa. Back in Burkina Faso, Traore remained focused on the future. He knew there was still much work to do, but he also understood that the Rice for All program had planted a powerful seed. During a ceremony celebrating the project's first 5 years, Traore delivered an emotional speech to an audience of farmers, young people, community leaders, and international guests. "When we started this program," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "many doubted us. They said it was impossible, that we were dreaming too big. But here we are proving that when we work together, there's no limit to what we can achieve." He then called Amadou, the young farmer he had once met in Mali, to join him on stage. Amadou was now one of the lead coordinators of a regional agricultural cooperative, training hundreds of young people in sustainable farming methods. "Mr. President," Amadou said, visibly moved, "thank you. I now have purpose. And because of this program, so do many others. Traore embraced Amadou in front of the entire audience, showing the strong connection that had grown between them. This is the true legacy of what we're building, he said. These are not just numbers or reports, these are changed lives. These are dreams made real. In the months that followed, the program continued expanding its reach, inspiring other African nations to launch similar initiatives. Africa was beginning to feed itself, proving that it was indeed possible to move beyond decades of foreign dependence. For Donald Trump, it became a moment of reflection. He realized that leadership is not only about power or about recognizing and supporting ideas that can truly transform lives. In a letter sent to Traore, Trump wrote, "Dear President Traore, you taught me something important, that real greatness comes from creating solutions that help people, not just governments. Congratulations on what you've achieved. The world needs more leaders like you. With respect, Donald J. Trump." The letter was widely shared, symbolizing a new phase in U.S.-Africa relations. For Traore, it wasn't just a political achievement. It was proof that when leaders unite around shared values, the world becomes a better place. As he looked out over the rice fields blooming under the African sun, Traore felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that challenges remained, but he also believed that every small step was moving the continent closer to a brighter future.